Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with Louis D'Souza, and this is your Daily Dose of Happy. We're so happy you decided to join us today. And just before we got started here, I was thinking, what should we do for a topic? And it occurred to me, we kind of created a topic without realizing it, Louis, because we had a little technical difficulty we were trying to iron out there. And what reminded me about that is so often in life, when we run into stuff, when we run into barriers or blocks or things that aren't working properly, we're faced with a conundrum that most of us don't think about. And actually, when we've worked on ourselves for a while, we still don't think about it, but we've done the work so that we think about it differently. And that is, we don't go at it in this vibration that you and I are in, feeling, oh God, this thing's not working properly and I'm so frustrated by it. But that's the way most people go into a problem like that. And it's a really big difference. So I figured, I'm not sure exactly how to label that as a topic, but that seems like an important topic. So I figured that's
We did very well, didn't we, with our little technical issues and stuff?
We did, yeah.
We did. It was ourselves on the back.
Yeah. I mean, we got solved in about 2 minutes. You know, and the technical issue was I couldn't hear you. Your mic wasn't working properly. You didn't have the right one plugged in. You didn't know where the plug was for the right one, the right combination, and so forth. I mean, that could have easily spiraled,
Absolutely.
into a negative spiral.
Yep. But in the old days, it would have.
In the old days, right. So let's pretend that, I mean, most of our listeners are pretty advanced conscious creators, but let's pretend that we're also talking to some listeners, and we may actually be, who are perhaps early on in the journey and have, they may have picked up some skills along the way, but they're still learning it. That's somebody who might want to learn more about, well, how do you get in that place? How do you make a job go easier when it feels like the world's working against you? So what are your initial thoughts? What's the best way to go about that?
Well, as most philosophers would say, get your philosophy right first.
Okay.
And, all the different groups of people out there will say do their thing first. But I kind of agree with the philosophy. Once you get the philosophy right, once you understand the rules to the game of life, and massage them and really work them and understand them, then every obstacle in your life becomes easier. Not just because you've worked on this subject, that one becomes easy, or this subject. When you get the philosophy right, all problems become easier because the solution is a philosophical one, which means it's based on a principle that covers all scenarios. And it's again, whenever somebody says, I'm really stuck with this or stuck with that, I really want to encourage them, please get to understand the law of attraction, get to understand the different implications, get to understand every subject's two subjects, get to understand your emotions, your guidance system. And that together I would put over as a philosophy. It's not just the law of attraction, but it's kind of like a philosophy of how to live your life and how to deal with problems like this. So to make it easier for yourself. And, the biggest advantage I've seen with anybody that I've taught over the years is once they get a solid grounding in it, they're off. They don't need me anymore. They don't need the podcast anymore. They don't need anything anymore. They're now running and living it, and, they're not looking back. And, you become empowered so that you can go forward and do your stuff. And it takes a little while, but I remember I talked about this before, but my wife said to me one day, Louis, I want you to teach me about the law of attraction. And I sat down. I remember sitting in one of the supermarket cafes, and we were chatting, and we were having this great discussion, and she was really getting all the bits and pieces. And it took 3 days of sitting and chatting and sitting and chatting. And then she got it, and then she ran off and just started teaching other people. And she's been doing that for years and years and years. Now, only time she comes back to me is when there's a specific situation which she wants you to, which she can't massage with her understanding that easily, into how to use the LOA for that. And, usually when I break it down for her, it's based on one principle. She's got too emotionally and involved with the whole thing that they can't step back a little bit and see the pieces for where they lie. And of course, we often use other people for that, mirroring us so that, because you can see my obstacles often better than I can see them because I'm so stuck in them. So
right.
It's really a good principle to ask somebody else. And, the LOA community is huge.
Yeah,
There's a lot of people with a lot of knowledge out there who are ready to help. That. So, use us. So we'd love to help, all of us.
Which is a reminder, I should get the promotional message in at this point because it's a perfect segue. That's one of the great values of having the LOA Today app installed on your phone because it has the built-in form for sending in a question to Louis.
Send Louis a question.
Send Louis a question. He loves questions. He'll take your question and spend 20 minutes on it. I mean, you'll get a lot of attention out of your question, I promise you. Or to Cindy or to Linda or Rita or anybody else who's a co-host on the podcast. Amy, when she gets back, she'll be back in November. So take advantage of that. Because, it's important to ask for help. And it's a good thing to ask for help because, among other things, it means you're open to be helped. No one can help you if you're not open to be helped. It's one of those odd things. People kind of take for granted that, sure, I'm open for being helped, but are they really? So often, it becomes very easy to just kind of say, I got the answers. I got this. Yeah, I'm struggling, but I got this. And, I just fell off a cliff, but I got this, Sometimes you just got to ask for help. It's okay. But you used an interesting phrase. You said you massage it. I love the phrase. Let's talk about some of the ways that you can massage it. Because massaging it, well, first of all, it has like a great image to it. But
are you massaging your microphone?
Bye. See you later. But let's talk about massaging. What are some of the ways that you like to massage? When you're helping somebody else, we'll go at that first, and then maybe talk about different ways to massage our own stuff.
Well, Walt, I was saying I wanted to go to the London Speakers Corner in Hyde Park.
Right, I remember that.
So I went on Sunday.
You did? Oh, okay.
I did.
How'd that go?
And I bumped into a lot of interesting guys, but I would call myself rather a fringe speaker rather than in the middle of it. Because, as I said, if you want to understand Speaker's Corner, it's mostly Muslim versus Christianity. That's the biggie there.
Okay.
So I went there early and I was chatting to some guys, and one of them was really intellectual. And I said to him, I've got my own philosophy. And he said, okay, what's that? So I broke it down for him, and then he started, saying that this part is like that, it comes from kind of that philosopher and this one's that. And, he could really massage and put in all different types of spins on it, which I found very useful. Good. But because I kept on asking him, okay, what does that mean? And what does that mean? He wasn't that keen to talk for too long because it was like my basis or my foundation wasn't high enough for where he was at. But he did say he learned quite a few new things from me, which he probably doesn't get that often in that group, which I appreciated. So then I found somebody else and we sat down and we pretty much talked for 2 hours solid. Nice. A 23-year-old Rastafarian-looking individual who was amazing. We had a long chat, but basically what we were doing with him was I was massaging his philosophy. I was getting him to take points and then step back and look at it from this way and look at it from that way. And then we were taking it this way and that way. And he's been there often, so he's an intellectual. Okay. So it was easier for me to deal with somebody who's also fairly far on and understands a lot of things already so that you can really talk from a certain level. And he could grasp a huge amount of the concepts. He understood although he didn't always agree, okay? And every time he said, I'm not quite sure I'm what's the word? Believing that. I'm not quite fully on board with that. And the thing that I'd always say to him is fantastic. That's great.
Yeah, sure.
And, I appreciate it more, as I said to him, when people don't agree with me than when they do. Because that means they're thinking about it, they understand where they're coming from, and they can maybe come back with an appropriate argument for the whole scenario. And then out of that discussion can come greater clarity. But if you and Walt are both on the same page, what can we learn?
Yeah.
We can't learn much from each other at all. There's no contrast.
Exactly.
So you start explaining to people the importance of people disagreeing with you or not liking where you're coming from, and then you build up. Somebody said to me in the sauna the other day, and I love this. This is a very important point. Is I said to me, what is your belief structure then? Because I'd given him mine, and he said, well, I explained it to somebody once, and he was a scientist, and he just tore it to pieces, and I'm not sure I'm going to say. So I said to him, you know what that tells me? It tells me you're not confident in your own belief yet. And he was looking at me, and he was like, yeah, wow. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
That way.
I said to him, I'd be happy if you try to tear mine to pieces. It would give me more joy than anything else. I don't need you to agree with me. If I need you to agree with me for me to feel happy, I've already lost the plot so thoroughly that I'm, not there. It's just total waste of time. So, once you get on board with the fact that I'm not out there to convince anybody of anything, I'm there to throw out ideas, and if somebody picks up one of the bones and chews on it, that's great. But if they want to leave them on the ground, that's also absolutely perfect. So, you become bulletproof because you're not trying to do anything.
Yeah.
If you're not trying to do anything, you can't fail.
It's kind of hard to take something away from you when you don't feel like anything can be taken away from you.
Exactly. And, it's great when somebody does throw me a curveball because I really chew over it. I really enjoy it. It's like,
sure.
Wow, that's good. So much enjoy that. And if people were like that, they would become resilient. They'd be able to take racist comments. They'd be able to take political different viewpoints with ease. And what I've noticed with the guys that go to the Speaker's Corner world, it's fascinating. They're resilient. I was having some tough conversations, and I put my viewpoint out, and I didn't care where it lands. It was a very clear, succinct viewpoint, and it was completely opposite to the different belief structures there.
Uh-huh.
And I let the pieces fall where they may, And you don't mind because you're confident in your own belief structure. You're confident in your philosophy. You're confident in what you have to offer, and you're confident that you don't need to convince anybody of anything. So when you're talking about massaging, it's really about getting somebody who is open enough. Otherwise, you can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
As you say, you need to ask.
Yeah.
You need to ask. You throw out certain ideas, and of course, then they start grabbing some of them, using some of them, and they're going to do it uniquely to their past.
Right.
To work to the philosophy that they have gained up to that point, what they believe is right or wrong.
Exactly.
They're going to work from that point, not where you are, not where anybody else is. They're going to be very specifically on that place where they're at. And when you do that, you start having a lot of fun because, this guy, I was sitting there for many hours. He was laughing and laughing and laughing. We were having so much fun together. It wasn't a deep philosophical conversation like I would have some other people have had with me in my past, where somebody's giving me a crumb when I hadn't had any crumbs given to me at all, and I was really all wound up and all the rest of it.
Right.
You learn. Actually, I think the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy taught me that. It's fascinating. It taught me to laugh about this whole idea about life, the universe, and everything. The way planet Earth is designed to conquer the ultimate question to what life, the universe, and everything, and we're the rats and running around. And, it's just the whole concept. You just sit there and you laugh and you laugh and you laugh. And there's a lot of truth to that.
Well, it's brilliant because it just kind of it knocks all of the old assumptions off the bandwagon, and now all of a sudden you're faced with this thing that's ludicrous, but it's fun.
The way I describe the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it's the best rubbish you'll ever read.
Yes, I remember you said that. Yeah.
It is simply an incredible book for anybody who is finding the philosophical world very serious.
Yes. It's a great way to release.
For those few individuals like myself, when you're young and all the rest of it, and you're finding this whole raison d'être, reason for living concept, what is it all about? How does it work? Where am I going? And you're taking it incredibly seriously. Read the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That'll massage you into a much better place.
Yep.
So, everybody has a philosophy. Some people say, I don't care about philosophy. It's not interesting to me. And that is a philosophy.
It is. It really is.
It always amuses me.
It's annoying, actually, to realize that you have a philosophy even when you don't want to have a philosophy.
Yes. But then the clarity comes, because you're now trying to understand, if I play this game with greater awareness, can I have a better game? Can I play it with some more fun, with some more enthusiasm, with more passion? Can I?
It's funny, too, because...
Or should I go get some more drugs?
Well, always a possibility, yeah. We can't rule that one out. I ruled that one out 40 years ago, but I won't speak for anyone else, But interesting, your story about your experience. And by the way, congratulations on taking that first step. I mean, that's pretty cool, because you've been talking about it for a while. You actually did it. You went to the speaker's corner. That's wonderful.
Well, it's the only reason I didn't go before was simply the weather was really crappy.
It was crappy.
I wasn't going to stand in the rain and chat philosophy. Thank you very much.
You're a fair weather speaker. That's fair enough. But when you were talking about that, it reminded me of, it kind of clarified, in a sense, why it is that I'm doing something similar. Not a speaker's corner, but I've been engaging in political groups on Facebook. And I have two reasons for doing that. One is I've been trying to let go of my own interest in politics, and I've almost completely not done it. There's like little pieces of it that I haven't let go of yet. So I'm kind of working on that, and I figure this is a good way to do it. And then secondly, I'm knowingly going into a group where none of the people are going to have any affinity at all for what I'm talking about. So it's a challenge. Can I be true to myself, be true to my beliefs, and engage in conversation in a way that doesn't turn into a fight? Because if I can do that, I'm really learning a lot about myself. I'm learning a lot about them. I'm learning a whole bunch of stuff. And it's really, really useful.
That's fascinating, Will, because that's what every philosopher's pretty much done, has thrown out to society concepts that are not in agreement with what society is generally, and getting them to look at things from a very different viewpoint. And some people have loved them for that, and some people have killed them for that.
That's true. Well, one
Many
of the first
them
things I've learned... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Many of them have died at the hands of those who have found what they said disagreeable.
Oh, yes. Yeah, no doubt about that. One of the things that I've loved about it has been that one of the things I've learned, I need to say, one of the biggest things that I've learned is that if I can use terminology that I would not normally use to describe what it is that I'm saying, then I don't give them, quote, code words, unquote, to react to. And without the code words, they'll actually listen to the concept. The moment that I throw a code word in, that's where I've lost them. Because, you're one of those woo-woo people. Yeah. But if I take the code words
when I was down at Speaker's Corner, I was doing pretty much precisely what you were saying. I was using the word like source. I'm like, what's source? What are you talking about, source? So that's my word for the non-physical. And I didn't even say God. You kind of you kind of remove that from the table as well. Non-physical. So what I'm talking about is, before I came into this physical body, I was not physical. Oh, okay. So God, no, non-physical.
Non-physical, yeah.
Source. And it's done very specifically because there's so much baggage to the word God, love.
Oh, yeah.
And truth as well. There's a lot of baggage to it.
Oof. Yeah.
And I was trying to explain, and I wasn't hugely successful, to be honest. The idea that, what's true for me is not true for you.
Yeah, that'll throw a lot of people.
I was speaking to a strong Christian, and I was saying to him, what would happen if you were born in a Muslim family? What religion do you think you'd be now?
Oh, yeah, that'll score points. Yeah. Trying to think, who was it? Was it Herod? No, it wasn't Herod. One of the biblical kings washed his hands and said, "What is truth?" And that's pretty much what I think of whenever I think of somebody saying, yes, but this is true. Like, okay. Yeah.
There's one truth. Yeah, what's that?
Right. The law of attraction is universal? Oh, I guess that's not it, huh?
Well, if you remove the physical universe, then the law of attraction has no necessity anymore. And we come from the non-physical, so yeah, it's not necessarily a stable universal truth. It is while the physical universe is around.
Well, that's an interesting point and an interesting question, one that I raised with the stream of David on a Tuesday about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. Because I asked him, does the law of attraction apply outside of our physical universal realm? Mm-hmm. And the answer was a qualified yes. That was about as far as I got with it.
Oh, right. Okay. So in the beliefs that I follow at one stage, they believe that there is the physical, astral, causal, mental, etheric.
Okay.
And after the etheric is the soul plane. That's the words they used. Mm. And in the soul plane, so all the way up to the etheric, mental and etheric, that is still within the cause and effect. They're still within the law of attraction. Still applies within those. But once you hit that higher plane, there is no matter, energy, space, or time. Consequently, no law of attraction.
Well, so now that we know what there is and what is there.
Sorry?
Well,
that's the whole point.
So now that we know what's not there.
There's a lot of nothing there.
A whole lot of nothing. Talking about dense space here.
So what is perceived to be there is love, and love is nothing without power.
Okay. So where does the power come from?
Hey, that's the philosopher's endless thing. If you say this is the ultimate God, who made him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where's the ultimate call? You can't go there. The way Abram puts it, and it's the clearest way that I've ever seen it. So far in the past that nobody has any idea. And that is the one thing that somebody has said that actually makes a little bit of sense to me.
It kind of reminds me.
The past is irrelevant to them because there is no past there. So it's like so far in the not now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how to put it. But I'm speaking very, very abstract concepts here. So some listeners who may be appreciating this, there's some that probably...
Well, it reminds me of the Carl Sagan novel, Contact, which was turned into a movie. And one of the themes in that was, for those who saw the movie, I'll tell from that point of view, because that's probably where, if you know about it at all, you know about it from the movie. Jodie Foster plays the main protagonist, and she ends up basically taking a mind trip using a machine that was designed to specifications sent to scientists on Earth from a distant star. And what the machine does is it basically takes you through a mental trip, like an out-of-body experience type trip to another planet where you can have a conversation with an extraterrestrial being that is one of the beings that sent you the instructions on how to do this. And cool. The question she's a scientist. One of the first questions she asks is, well, did you make the machine? And the answer is, the machine's been around for as long as anyone knows. It's always been around. No one knows who created it. No one knows how it got here. It's always been here. This is the way it's been done for millennia.
It sounds very much like Abram's answer.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, very, very similar. And it also was interesting in that it was written by a scientist, because Carl Sagan was a physicist. I believe he was also an astrophysicist. And he was writing what was essentially a spiritual narrative from a scientific point of view, which was pretty cool. I remember that particularly at the time that I think it was the first time I'd ever heard a scientist write about something non-scientifically. And it had a great deal of science in it, but it also had spiritual speculation in it as well. And I appreciated that. It was fun. It was like, whoa, wow. Yeah, scientists actually do have a life. How about that?
Yeah, it was quite interesting. I was listening to a discussion about the humans get so enamored with the physical body.
Mm-hmm.
We're obsessed with it. A boy would be playing with girls at the age of 10, 11, 12. No problem. And then suddenly there's some bumps that appear and they fall apart, and there's like this huge focus on these areas. And one really needs to kind of break out of it after about 20, 21, 22. We need to start getting back to a more spiritual and respectful and looking at the source part of an individual rather than the body anymore. But you look at all the models, the magazines, everybody's got to look like Barbie dolls and, and Kens. And,
well, that's what I did wrong. I was trying to look like a Barbie doll. No wonder it didn't work.
and then they brought in the idea of masculine and feminine. And it was fascinating because the person was saying that, isn't the feminine side, the kind and gentle and intuitive side, so important? And he said, no, you're getting a bit mixed up here. You're now applying the feminine to a female. But you get males that are more feminine than females. You get females that are more masculine than males. So you start understanding the difference between male and female and masculinity and femininity. And it was an idea that was brand new to me because I hadn't really thought about that aspect at all. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. I hadn't digested that aspect. And then you kind of makes more sense about gays, etc., or people that are more masculine as a girl who are attracted to other girls, and guys who are very, very feminine who are attracted to other guys and can have relationships with them. And then you're playing with the masculinity and femininity dynamic rather than I'm a male or female dynamic. You're kind of creating your relationship based more on masculinity and femininity. And I'd never thought about these concepts at all. And it was just like, wow, I thought I'd bring that up today as something that other people can toss around in their mind and think about. And but ultimately, what I've learned is that I don't associate very much, as I've mentioned to you before, Walt, that I'm a male at all. And I just see people as people.
I totally agree. In fact, I actually did give quite a bit of consideration and thought to the concepts of masculinity and femininity during those years that you were talking about, from like 11 to 12 up to the early 20s, because the whole thing completely confused me. And the best
Are you talking about male or female or masculinity or femininity?
Masculinity and femininity.
Okay.
And what I ended up deciding was, well, I can identify masculinity or femininity by examples that have been presented to me. I can kind of group them and say, okay, I recognize that as what society calls masculine. I can recognize this as something that society calls feminine. And that's as far as I was ever able to take it. In other words, I can identify by example, by comparing to what I know other people have said about it. For myself, I still can't say that I know what masculine is, and I still can't say what feminine is. I don't have a clear idea of it in my mind, which is probably bizarre from most people's perspective. But
you need to take some testosterone.
Testosterone?
That stuff.
First I can learn to pronounce it, and then I can actually take some of it.
Exactly.
I'll throw some estrogen in as well. But
there was another comment to this whole masculinity and femininity, which was quite interesting, is once a human balances the masculine and feminine within themselves, then they are more at peace.
And I can see that. I can definitely see that. Once again, seeing by example. Again, in terms of trying to take this internally and say to myself, well, this is my masculine side, my feminine side. Even if I'm talking about that, I always have to make reference to what does society mean by masculine, what does society mean by feminine. If I try to do it any other way, I have no idea. I don't have a clue whether I'm masculine, feminine, hybrid, mongoloid, I don't know, whatever it is. I don't know. When you said, I don't think of myself as masculine or feminine, my inner being said, yeah, that's me. I get that.
Well, actually, it's not that I don't think of myself as masculine or feminine. I don't think of myself as male. And I know that I have a strong masculine and feminine side in me.
Okay.
So
what can you describe to me what masculine and feminine mean to you, for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good question. So masculinity with me would be more the get out there, go do it, goal orientated, where my feminine side is more relaxed, intuitive, can do multiple things at one time, is more balanced on different areas. But again, the two together, when one's got a lot of direction and one's got a lot of intuition, when they're working in harmony, you really feel that you can go places and do things. So, yeah.
That's certainly consistent with what I've heard society-wise, culturally, about what's masculine and what's feminine. I still don't identify with either one. I mean, I look inside and say, does one feel like that's me? Does the other one feel like that's me? Well, yeah, kind of. Sure, I can identify.
You've seen the yin-yang symbol.
Like, I don't know. What does that mean?
You've seen the yin-yang symbol, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
You've looked at it much, or?
Well, I did a little reading on it. Not a whole lot. I have a general idea of what they were trying to say. It's kind of along this line. I don't know. I think what happened with me in terms of my self-exploration and in terms of exploring this from a cultural perspective is that I kind of burned out on the whole duality thing. The male, female, all the different dualities. That's just one kind. Master, slave, master, teacher, or I'm sorry, master, student, that kind of thing. Teacher, student. All the different dualities like that. I burned out on them because after a time I began to realize that the boundaries between them are so heavily blurred by experience that they almost become meaningless. They almost become, I understand to an extent why people want to use them, but for me, maybe because I've never really formed myself in a clear picture, I am masculine or I am feminine. It's a distinction without a distinction for me. I don't know how else to describe that.
I've been through phases of my life where I have experienced a lot of femininity in myself, and like crying and not necessarily femininity, but it's kind of what I would relate to, the freedom to just be able to cry and be myself and just do that kind of emotional stuff. And then I've also had the real leader get out there and go get him kind of macho kind of thing. And I've played with both of those to quite a degree. And now I realize I can actually flip between either of them quite quickly and easily. So I can kind of play with either. I can use either to my advantage is really what I'm saying at the moment.
Yeah. And I've used those as well, not necessarily thinking them as masculine or feminine, but rather just thinking about them as tools, different kinds of tools to use. There are times where I find it useful to get aggressive. I guess I'm being masculine when I do that. I just think about it as getting aggressive, because from my perspective, women can be just as aggressive as men. So I don't really think of one as being masculine or feminine. It's just aggressive is just aggressive. It's not like the female line doesn't need to eat. They go out, they aggressively get their food. That's just what they do.
No, I like it. They got killed for the male and bring the food to them.
Would you like this antelope? Would you like it over easy? How would you like this, deer? It's like, no.
I love the way you guys say zebra, not zebra.
Oh, of course. That's the part of the charm of being. We go to American Charm School. That's what it is.
So, yeah, it's just really interesting. There's the concept which I mentioned to you probably a couple of podcasts ago of the amount of knowledge you know is about this size, the amount you know is infinite, the amount you don't know is infinite, is really sinking in with me more and more and more to the degree that I'm starting to realize I really know really, really very, very little. And I know even less, less and less as I see how broad that what I don't know is. It's just so infinitely broad that, selling what I know is not important anymore. I don't need other people to buy it. I will say it because it makes me happy. And I enjoy it, but not because I need anybody to believe me. And it truly is very, very liberating. If people can get that, they'll become so resilient. It'll be unbelievable.
That's true. And when you're describing that, it reminds me of something here in the U.S. One of our iconic historical moments was in 1980 when our ice hockey team, made up of college kids, beat the Soviet Union ice hockey team in the Winter Olympics. It was a overwhelming kind of moment at a time when we really needed one because as a country, we were feeling pretty poor about ourselves. And to this day, it's called the Miracle on Ice here. To this day, the Miracle on Ice, all you have to do is say that to another American. They instantly know what you're talking about. And the meaning of it for almost every American, regardless of whether you like ice hockey. I mean, I'm not a big fan. My wife certainly isn't. But for both of us, it would be a very meaningful moment in time. It reminds me of the coach of that team. His name was Herb Brooks. He was particularly masculine about wanting to pursue the Olympic medal because he was on the 1960 team that had beaten the Soviets. It was the last time the U.S. had ever beaten the Soviets in hockey, and then they had a long run where they just won everything. And not only was he on the team, he was kicked off the team at the last second. Somebody else was swapped in his place. So he had this massive motivation to beat the Soviets. So that's where he came into it. And he had this philosophy about how he coached his players, and he really drove them pretty hard. Basically, he was trying to make all his players hate him so that they would coalesce and unify into a team. And one of his favorite ways to do that, one of his favorite ways to do that was to come up with little phrases, what they called Brooksisms. That's what his players called them, Brooksisms. And one of his favorite Brooksisms was to say, you're playing even worse than you were yesterday, and tomorrow you're going to be playing even worse than you're playing today, and right now you're playing like it's next Thursday. So he would just tear you down that way. Well, if I take the same phrasing and apply it to what you said, it's along the lines of, well, I realized today that I knew less than I did yesterday, and right now I'm feeling like I know about as much as I do next month. That's what I was thinking about when you were saying that. But there's truth to that. There's power in that.
There's so much freedom to get to that place where you really, really are happy to learn from anybody and anything and anywhere and any time and any experience. You're open to the aliens teaching you. Abraham Hicks is teaching you it doesn't matter where it comes from anymore. You now know that you're solid in being able to sift through it, see if it's of any value, and then move on.
Yes, that's true. And not only sift through it, what I find now is I've gotten to the point where any new idea that comes my way, any new way of thinking about this stuff, particularly in an LOA type group, I'm reflexively, I don't even have to do it consciously anymore. Just my mind just kind of goes to, okay, how does that compare to what I know about what Abraham Hicks teaches? How does that compare to what I know about what Mike Dooley teaches? My favorite teachers, what would they say about that? Mm-hmm. And it's an instantaneous calculation. I don't have to give it any thought. I don't have to consciously say, geez, I wonder what it is that Abraham Hicks, no, it's just like bang, it's right there. And it's
so what you're talking about is what I call ownership. Now It's not Abraham Hicks's teaching. It's not Dooley's teaching. It's now my belief structure.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And that is the powerful place to be.
Oh, it really is.
Because you now own it. There was a Christian who was saying sex before marriage is bad, and he was saying, I can't explain it to you because he couldn't come up with anything real valid, but it's in my Bible. I said, well, if it's in your Bible and you're a Christian and you've studied it for many years, why can't you convince me or speak to me? He says, well, its words are better and all the rest. I said, okay, bring out the Bible. So he brings out the Bible and I have a look at it and I read through it and I handed it back to him and I said to him, okay, I've read it. It doesn't say anything about sex before marriage is bad in that section. So what do you get out of it? So he reads it again. He comes back and he has nothing to say, because I was pointing to the idea that, when I was younger with my girlfriend, I went to South Africa and I stayed at my parents' house and my dad knew we were having sex and I was not married. And he came and knocked on the door and he said, Louis, it's a mortal sin because I'm a Catholic. And not because, I'm just giving the listeners a thing. And he was saying, it's a mortal sin and, I just wanted to advise you that it's really good to go to confession. I said, thanks for telling me that, Dad, and I appreciate your point of view and all the rest of it, but I'd be going to confession every day, and I don't think that's kind of going to work very well. And I don't believe at all that something so beautiful and incredible and sacred and lovely is bad. In the core of my being, I know it's right.
Right.
And nothing any religion can tell me is going to convince me otherwise. Now, if they made the statement that there is great value in getting married and then bringing up a family because of many other ramifications and the security of the two parents and all the rest of it for the children, etc., and didn't say that it was evil and I would go to hell if I did it beforehand, then maybe I would take on board what they were saying. But you don't hit me with a stick and expect me to like it. I'm sorry. It doesn't work very well.
That's exactly what people do. They hit people with a stick saying, well, if I hit you with a stick hard enough and often enough, you're going to change the way you think about things.
Let them try.
Well, like I mentioned before, I've been spending time in political groups. That's one thing political people love to do, is to beat other people over the head with their sticks. Mm-hmm. And they figure if the other side isn't listening or isn't learning, it just means they aren't hitting them hard enough with a stick. So they have to hit them even harder with a stick. It never
I've
dawned
seen
on
that
them
specifically with one of the groups at the moment that are very big out there, who really, if you do not agree with their point of view, they really hit you with a stick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Absolutely lynch you.
It's true.
And that philosophy is so flawed. Believe what I tell you to, or you're wrong, is just not the way it's got to be done.
Well, that's one of the things I've been kind of messing with their minds on, because I've been saying to them, essentially, what's your track record when it comes to getting results from beating people with a stick? Mm-hmm. I don't actually say it that baldly. I come at it in a way that they can handle.
Yeah.
And inevitably the answer is to just go back to, well, I beat him over the head with a stick. Yeah, but you didn't answer my question. And then you get into a little bit of a circle there. But it's almost like, I think it's a form of addiction in a sense. I am so addicted to, this is the way things have to be. And of course I have to be right. So therefore this is right. And so it just becomes right. And it's literally a self-fulfilling prophecy that creates horrible results. But they seem to like it, so, I don't dissuade them from liking it. I just simply like to kind of point out, well, there is another way to look at this. And sometimes I get a good response out of it. That's always rewarding. If I'm getting a good response, it's like, oh, somebody's listening. How nice. Yeah, okay. That's good. That's really good. The other thing that you mentioned was religion and religious thinkers, referring particularly Christians, because we both have a Christian background, so obviously that's what we run into more often. And Christians in particular don't really know their Bibles as well as they think they do. And you kind of
no, the Muslims know them much better.
Muslims know the Quran a whole lot better. They know the Quran, they know the Hadith, they know all of it. Yes,
they know the Bible better than any Christian.
They know the Bible better. It's true. They really do. No doubt about it. But
that is the way they lynch them to a post.
Oh, yeah.
And crucify them again and again at Speaker's Corner. But then I had two friends. I had a Muslim and a Christian sitting there. And they said to me, you're unbiased because you're not Christian or Muslim. Which one of the two religions would you choose? I said, that's a very good question. I said, I love Islam because it's really, they train people intellectually and philosophically, which I'm very strong on, from a young age, and they really get them into a strong place of understanding what they believe and what their teachings are very clearly, and I really appreciate that aspect. But the Christians have really big hearts, and they teach you to turn the other cheek, etc. And I think I would err on the side of the heart side rather than the intellectual side. Personally, that's what I would choose if I had to choose between the two.
Yeah.
And the Christian said, that's very, very well thought out. That's very well thought out. He was quite impressed with that aspect, which I was like, okay. Him being the winner, of course.
Of course, yes. Well, that's why he was so impressed by it. One of my favorite things to do with somebody, because we'll get, we have all the different kinds of unusual Christian sects. We have the Jehovah's Witnesses, we got the Seventh-day Adventists, we got the Mormons.
Where are you talking about?
In the U.S. They're all over the place.
In the U.S. That's what you were talking about.
All of these different sects. Jehovah's Witnesses are my favorites because they're the ones who will go around door to door, and find out if you've been saved and hand you the Watchtower magazine and all that stuff. And one of the things I'd like to do with them is to get them, assuming I'm willing to actually do it. Sometimes I just don't have the time for it. But if I'm into it, I'll ask them, what is it? Tell me what the particular thing you're trying to sell is today. Okay, that's what you're trying to sell. What's your basis for that? Because I know there's a biblical basis for it. They'll tell me what it is. And then I'll ask them, okay, so that section of the Bible doesn't literally say what you're saying. So how do you know it's true? And they'll say, well, it's a metaphor or it's symbolic in some way. And I'll say, okay, what's it a symbol for? And then there's a pause. And then there's a long pause, and then they'll kind of repeat what they originally said. And I say, okay, that's what you're originally saying, but I'm asking you specifically about this particular story that you're quoting, because it's usually a story, or at least a very, very short story in the Bible. Okay, what is the metaphor of that story? What is that actually telling us, and how do we know that that's what it's telling us? And then they'll go back to what their original storyline was, and I'll say, no. What is this metaphor here? Explain this metaphor. Treat it like a simile. A simile is where X means Y. So what's the X and what's the Y? And I get cross-eyed looks because they don't know the metaphor behind the story. All they know is the conclusion they were taught to draw from it. They don't actually, they can't actually connect the story to what it is they're trying to say. And so there's like this big gap in there, and they get tripped up on it every single time. It's pretty wild to watch. It shows what kind of a flawed individual I am, because I like to make them do that.
You are so brutal, horrible.
I really am.
I always like leaving those guys with a positive comment and statement and all the rest of it, because for me it's particularly easy to tear almost anybody's beliefs down, and then I can also do completely the opposite, which I always do, is build them up again and then make them feel really good about it all, maybe with a slightly different viewpoint on things.
Ooh, you're clever.
If I'm lucky. And it's important to me to kind of leave everybody feeling a little bit better. I wanted to ask you, Walt, how is your sick cat?
You probably saw me that I was letting him out the door there. My sick cat is doing very, very well. He is energized. He is eating well. He is begging to go outside, fantastic. Even though we don't let him outside. We're not letting him outside anymore. But, he just spent the last 45 minutes in my lap purring and getting petted and so forth.
Oh, that was him. Cool.
That was him. Yep. He's doing very, very well. Yeah, so thanks for asking, and once again, thanks to everybody who helped send the energy to heal him. He ate it all up. He really did.
That's great, because it really does work.
It does work. Oh, yeah.
If you ask and you allow, and people are happy to send, that symbiosis works very well.
And it's really fascinating. I mean, on the one hand, we were obviously emotionally caught up on it because we wanted him to heal. We wanted our old cat back. But on the other hand, it was fascinating to kind of watch the same thing from a distance, which we really couldn't do because we were so close to it. But I tried to look at it from a distance as well. And it was fascinating to see how literally one day he could be near death. The next day, with our help, with the help of doctors, with the help of all these people sending love and positive energy, he could be to the point where he was starting to eat. And then the next day, bam, it was like the old cat was back. It was almost like, I don't know, a dimensional shift or something, where one cat got pulled out and the other cat got put in. Just bang, just that quick. Which showed me, wow, this stuff really, not only does it works fast if you let it just in. If you just don't get in the way and just trust it and let it go and just say, well, whatever is going to be is going to be. Boy, does it work fast. And he demonstrated it. I mean, his recovery over the course of 3 or 4 days was every single day there was like a major leap forward. And I got to see it.
Well, when you start working more and more with energy, it happens over time. Non-physical vibrations, you start seeing that it's incredibly powerful. And you start wondering how you missed this all along the way and how society has really integrated into the pills tablet kind of scenario to such a huge degree that this natural healing vibrational method, which has been used probably almost since the first person arrived on this planet, in some shape or form, before they knew about all these herbs and pills and tablets and potions. That's what they used. They used whatever they could. And it doesn't take too much for somebody to stumble across the energetic healing kind of world. I imagine, especially in the old days, many of them stumbled across and used it very effectively and helped many a person. But now we have such a huge advantage. We have the intellect, we have the knowledge, we have the sharing abilities, we have. We're on such a different level at the moment. The world is changing so rapidly, and we're far more. So in the old days, the kings pretty much ruled everything. They were kings and queens. They if you disagreed with them, you were dead, and if you agreed with them, you kind of lived on in sufferance, or maybe you were fully in agreement with them, and that was all okay. But slowly but surely, that has been devolved. The one guy was saying to me that one philosopher was saying, if you don't take a strong and clear political stand, then you will be controlled by politics. And I said to him, that's not really how it is, because if you look in the old days of the kings, they had a strong political opinion, which was theirs, autocratic, and it was obeyed completely.
Right.
Now, it's a huge mixture of left and right, having this huge hodgepodge of a thing going on, and the rest of us can just get on with our stuff, while they have this big bang that's going on, where they're equalizing each other out. There's not one autocratic ruler telling you what to do anymore. And you've got this big fight going on, and many of us are ignoring the whole political scenario and just living our lives and having fun and enjoying things and going about doing whatever we want to. Well, that big thing for a lot of people, it's a big issue. You would know.
Oh yeah.
And it's this huge fight, and then there's many of us that are just going and saying, great, they're fighting, so we can carry on. And when I said this to the guy, he was like, okay. I hadn't heard of that one before, and I think he kind of dismissed it as some ramblings of some guy who thinks he knows what he's talking about.
Well, it's funny how we can have different perceptions and different ways of thinking about something like that's presented. I love what you presented. I think it's a great story. But the way I was thinking about it was a little bit different, is that when he made his statement, and I don't remember the exact wording, he phrased it in terms of you. If you do this, or if you don't do this, that will happen, that kind of thing. And it occurred to me, all he had to do was replace the pronoun you with the pronoun I, and he had it.
Exactly. In his own world. Yeah.
It's in his own world.
Yeah.
That's exactly what goes on in his world.
And that is a very important point, Walt, is I was speaking to this Christian at the end, and he was saying to me that he's very strong in his belief, and this is right, and I said, that's great. I really love that. I'm so happy that you really believe in it. But where I starts getting fuzzy is when you want me to believe in it. And he kind of wanted to say, no, I'm going to let you believe what you wanted to. But then on the other hand, he had to say that, no, yeah, you really have to follow what I say. But then I said, what about the guy on Beetlejuice? I love going back to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. On planet Beetlejuice, where they've never heard Christianity. He says, well, it's worse for you because you have heard about it.
Oh, that's
doesn't really
funny.
answer the question, but it's very amusing.
You've just proven that the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy trilogy of books is actually very practical to use in
very practical
daily conversation. Oh, that is funny. Yeah. Yeah, because what you were basically doing is challenging the length and breadth and height of his bubble, his universe. And
I was just pointing out a basic fact. Nobody likes being told what to do.
Well, that too, yeah.
And nobody else wants to be told what to believe.
It's a funny thing, though. The reason I mentioned the width and length and height of that bubble is the whole concept of a bubble. That's something that has actually been kind of in vogue here in LOA circles. We've talked about it quite a bit here on the show. And it's a useful concept because it's really a great way to kind of get a sense of how all this stuff works, how it affects our own lives and how we touch other people's lives and so forth. But it also provides a really great...
I don't understand this bubble story, and maybe some of our listeners don't either.
Oh, well, just the idea that we all live in our own bubbles.
Okay.
Our bubbles of reality.
Right.
Yeah. Worlds that we create for ourselves and so on and so forth. And my bubble touches your bubble, and then we can communicate and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a useful way of framing stuff. What is interesting, though, when you run into somebody like him, somebody who basically wants you to think like he does, is he's now finding out what happens when he doesn't hold the model of the bubble clearly in his mind, because he starts blurring that boundary of the bubble, and he starts blurring it to the point where your area of your bubble is now part of his bubble. He's basically pulling your bubble into his bubble, as if he has a right to your bubble, as if your bubble belongs to him rather than to you. And that's really what your point was, that, he's not really respecting who you are. He's just trying to make you like him. That's it. Everybody has to be like me. Yeah.
He was getting rather forceful, so I said, and I'm very clear about this, I said, that's a whole lot of BS.
Yeah.
And he didn't flinch at it at all, because the guys that go to Speaker's Corner, and I had to admire this about him, they are used to handling a lot of objections and all the rest of it. And to me, that was very admirable, that he literally didn't even blink an eyelid to that. He realized that he couldn't continue in that line of chat with me, but it didn't bother him at all. And I respect that, because that is resilience. And that's what I want to see more with everybody around me. Because at the moment there was a WhatsApp message in one of my daughter's groups that the guy was really abusing another individual verbally into social media. And and the parents got all uppity about it. I mean, bullying is just unacceptable on every level. And they were going really very concerned, aggravated, frustrated, buttons pushed, etc. And all I did was I sent up that one video, which I think I sent you about bullying, a YouTube video.
Is that how I got all these bullying things on my channel? I knew that I got a whole bunch of these bullying videos and I didn't know where they came from. So thank you. And now I understand where.
No, I only sent you one, and it's only that one. It's a
but it only takes one, because I play yours and Facebook says, oh, he wants more of those.
Okay. Is that what you're talking about? That aspect, yes. Yeah, Google's very good at knowing what you want at once.
Oh, yes.
But it's such a brilliant video, and I got some great comments. Oh, that makes sense. This is good. And I really like that because it just really explains that all it is, it's a power game. Bullying is all about, the reason why children get abused is simply because somebody's stronger than somebody else.
Yeah. Well, more than that.
It's a power game.
It's a power game, yeah. That's what it is.
And a power game just means you're stronger than them. You're not going to abuse that kid if they're bigger and stronger than you, are they?
True. Well, you might try.
You might try.
Get a bloody nose out of it,
get smashed. So, yeah, it really is. The male's been stronger than the female. There's been a lot of abuse on all different areas. I mean, hey, in this day and age, it's often the other way around as well. But, and it really boils down to the level of resilience the individual has.
Yeah, that's important.
I would love to see somebody try and bully me. It would just be great fun.
This is why I'm glad that we actually limited to discussion, because then I can, after the conversation, and we're done for the day, I can go kind of rebalance my vibrations so I don't get any of that stuff that you're trying to attract.
You need to become more resilient, folks.
How do you think I do it?
And, it's great fun because you start watching people like my daughters. They really are resilient, and because they are so confident, they are in a position to express more love and compassion.
Yes, I agree with that completely. Yeah.
And it is very much a whole thing that turns around where you're in a position to really respect people where they are not trying to invade your space and all the rest of it. You're able to protect yourself when needed, and you're able to really help people when they need it. And the interesting thing about myself, as I've learned over the years, is I'm good at helping people philosophically. Yeah. I'm not the guy you want to come to when somebody's been really, really terrible to you and you're crying and all the rest of it. You don't come to me. I'm not the guy you come to when that happens. All right, I might be actually slightly good at it because I'll probably just keep quiet. But there are other people that are so good at that on this planet. Well, they're very, very good at helping other people when they're down.
Oh, yeah.
But then you get different people that are good at helping people when they're up and they want to go higher.
And that's a big deal.
And you get different people at different stages, and you've got to realize because there's a lot of teachers who may be listening to this, you've got to realize as a teacher where you are and what audience will fit your vibration. And as you become more aware of that, you start working in a very different way with people. I often would say to somebody who comes to me wanting to cry on my shoulder, I say, well, my wife is very good at that, or my daughter, Isabel is particularly good with that, There are other people that are better at helping you than me at that moment in time. If I'm the only person around, I'm not bad at it, but it's just that's not really where I want to teach. So consequently, it doesn't happen to me. Nobody comes to me crying on the shoulder. I mean, I can't remember when anybody ever did that my whole life. I don't have that vibration, but there are people that are so good at it, and I have to admire them because it's not me.
Well, that's one of
there is a place. There's a place for all different kind of people.
Absolutely, yeah.
Really help people who need food, and I would say I'd rather teach you how to go fishing rather than give you food.
Mm-hmm.
Philosophy concept.
Yeah.
Let me teach you how to manifest. Let me teach you the law of attraction.
Well, that's essentially the foundation that I'm using to appreciate that which
But
I
if the
don't
person's
like.
died of starvation, there's no room we try to get philosophy into. So there is a place for everybody. There is a place for.
But this is literally the overall approach. I mean, I think of it a little bit differently, different wordings, but this is the overall approach that I'm taking to appreciating that which I don't like. Because that's really the ultimate skill. You don't have to like it, but if you can learn to appreciate it, then you are going a long way toward maintaining that high level of vibration that really does create
Absolutely essential piece of philosophy.
Yeah, it's absolutely essential.
If you respect negativity, respect the expansion process. And I was spending a lot of time talking to this individual in the park in connection with that precise point, Is it negative? Is it evil? Or is it just an expansion point? And it was really challenging for me to start getting that idea across. First of all, it was a new idea. Second of all, it had to take some belief in it, And then you start explaining that belief is just a thought you think often, and that concept took quite a while to get across. And I was surprised because, first of all, the individual could take it on board. Second of all, the individual struggled with it and let me know. And third of all, they allowed me to help them try to get some kind of grasp on it, even though they were still not fully convinced at the end of it. So it was really interesting. Most people I come across, I don't know if they're just glibly saying that they fully understand that, but this individual was quite open enough to play with the whole idea, and I really respected that, the idea that they could sit there and look at it from different angles and new perspectives and all the rest of it, because a lot of people can't.
Or they just haven't learned how to yet. Not that they can't. It's just they
can't at that moment in time. So yes, completely accurate. Yeah, a more accurate statement. Yeah. I'm not saying that they can't ever. No, not can't at that stage.
They're not ready. That's all, and that's fine. They'll be ready when they're ready, and I don't know when that'll be, but it's not to me.
And it's got nothing to do with us. Nothing to do with us at all. And they may never be ready for that information, which is perfect in this lifetime. So.
And that brings us to the end of the episode, because since I can't really help them any further, I have to just stop right there. But this has been fun as usual, so thank you once again.
A very philosophical one.
Yep. A very philosophical, yes. I'll have to put the word philosophy into the title because it fits. I'm just not quite sure what the title's going to be yet. But thank you very much. Thank you, live streamers. Thank you especially to our podcast listeners, and we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.